Latinos in Success on building confidence and expressing your voice. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank Café con Éxito for creating space for conversations like this and helping bring this community together. I also want to recognize the broader Latinos in Success community and celebrate this month because this marks our 2-year anniversary. We are really proud of what this community has built and grateful to everyone who has made it possible. Before I hand it over to Sarah, Priscilla, our founder, our leader, anything you want to say about the 2-year anniversary?
Thank you, Joey. That's so nice of you. Hi, everyone. Anything I want to say, I was thinking about it because I was telling Sarah I took a quick walk at the park just to clear my brain from the whole week. And I was thinking about how fast this 2 years went by, but also that how this is just a beginning, you know? Most of us here are community builders and we know how long it takes to build community. So this is just a seed that we planted and this is just starting to bloom. We're seeing so much like good to come out of it. The relationships, the connections, the growth that we're seeing everywhere in this community. And I'm so excited and I couldn't be more grateful for all of you. I was chatting with Cynthia this week, who was like one of our first members of our community. I remember her being the third person in our Slack. And I was like, and thinking about those people are here because they believe in us. And now we are here and we have like mentorship groups going on. We have connections being formed. We have events being planned. We have trainings like this. And all happened because I decided to just I'm just going to do it. And I spend nights and weekends building this. And now we're actually our community and we have so many amazing folks here. So thank you all for all this.
So thank you, Pris, for building this and fostering these types of conversations for myself and from everyone here. We're grateful that we can be part of this. Which brings us to today's conversation. And this one's a really important one because this is about confidence and how a voice shapes so much of how we show up professionally, how we communicate, how we advocate for ourselves, how we lead. And so today we are grateful to have Sarah with us. Sarah brings a deep experience in leadership development, communication, executive presence, and helping people build trust and show up with greater clarity and confidence. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Sarah, for a quick introduction. Then we'll move over to an opening questions and a reflection exercise, then a moderated conversation and Q&A. That sound good, everyone?
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Priscilla and I have known each other for quite a few years now. I don't know how many years ago she attended a course that I offered. But needless to say, my background is that I actually had a completely different career before becoming an executive coach and trainer. I was in sales. And I remember various pieces of my life where I had more confidence or less confidence. And there are moments that we actually can shift and help ourselves be more confident. But I think Joey wanted me to share with you one of the first times I actually thought about confidence as kind of a concrete thing was when I was in my first career, which was sales. And I went on a sales call with my boss and I was so nervous. My voice shook. I even forgot some of the things I said. And afterwards he said, you know this stuff. He said, just be more confident. And I said, okay, yeah. Be more confident. And I said to myself, how do I do that? I never understood how to do it. And as I shifted careers, one of the goals was to help people actually create tangible ways to be more confident. But it also happened with every other piece of feedback I was ever given. Be a better listener. Okay, should I just shut up and not talk? No, I needed tools. I needed tangible things to help me be a better listener. So that's what I hope to share with you today is some really tangible things about actually intentionally building confidence. Because there is a tangible way. I don't have slides. I want this to be an open dialogue. Joey, you want me to jump in and ask them their first question?
I was gonna say let's get into it. Because you mentioned this experience that you had at the start of having someone tell you be more confident. And so obviously everybody, when they could get that type of feedback, we all reacted different ways. And so when you got that, what was your understanding of confidence then? What has changed since that moment?
The understanding was that yes, I wanted to be more confident, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how to help myself be confident. I knew my material. I knew what I wanted to say to the customer, but somehow when the boss is there, it all went out the door. So I do want to walk everyone through, but before I do, I would love for you to just take a moment and think about when you are your most confident self at work. How are you showing up? What does that look like? Just jot down a few notes, and I'm going to ask a couple of you to share if you don't mind. All right. Who would like to share? Joey, I'll have you call on whoever. Let's start with attempting to get your hand raised. Who would like to share? Like, how are you showing up when you're feeling confident? What are the behaviors? Perhaps what do you sound like? What are you doing that might be different in those moments? And really, how are you feeling? Like, what words would you put other than confident? What does confidence feel like for you? So who'd like to share?
A way that I feel confident is just like posture wise, right? The way that you're walking into a room feels differently when I am feeling confident. The way that I interact with people, right? The eye contact and just your posture on its own, just the way you're sitting, standing, walking.
Right. So you're saying you literally physically
Physical.
feel different.
Yeah, physically.
Absolutely. Who else would like to share?
Liz, we got you.
For me, it's like more of an internal feeling. Like I know I am confident in a situation when I can be curious.
Great. So you find yourself being more curious when
Yeah.
you're confident. All right. Wonderful. So anybody else want to share? Okay.
Hi, I want to share.
Yeah. Okay,
Hi,
great.
I'm Veronica, and I'm sorry I'm driving, so I don't want to be off mute too long, but when I feel the most confident is when I feel free, like to really be myself, where I don't really have to think about what to say. It just kind of comes out naturally without really, like, it's more effortless.
Okay, wonderful. So really what I'm hearing is that it is a feeling, but you're also seeing it in behaviors, literally how you're showing up with posture or even tone of voice. So now take a moment and see if you can identify what's different when you don't feel that confidence. How are you showing up? How are you feeling?
I know for myself, Sarah, that I stumble over every single word that I say when I'm not confident. The ums start coming out, the likes start flowing, I become repetitive, I over explain, and I feel like it becomes so noticeable when I'm not confident because the ums and the likes, the over explanations.
At least you can pinpoint that. Who else would like to share? That's pretty common, Joey, by the way.
I forget to breathe. I'll be, if I have to present, I'm on a stage, I'll catch myself talking, and all of a sudden I'm just like, I don't remember the last time I took a nice little deep breath here. Just kind of calming the energy, but I definitely catch myself heartbeat going and.
Right, so you can feel yourself talking really quickly, heart is beating.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyone else want to share?
The posture, feel yourself kind of go into turtle more, like your shoulders come forward and maybe more hunch. You don't want to appear big. You try and shrink yourself.
Right. Excellent. So really what you're all naming right now are the tangible behaviors and the feelings that you can put words to. We're going to dive in a little bit and help you understand how to actually build your own confidence in any given moment.
Thank you. This was so helpful for grounding this exercise, and I feel like something that we noticed in the Café con Éxito surveys was so many people feel this way. And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm feeling less alone because I also feel that like my posture changes or that my voice changes. So yes, like Sarah, please take it away.
So let me assure you that even somebody like me who knows the how to help myself be more confident, I'm still not always confident. So what you have to start to do is recognize, wow, I'm in that space where I'm not confident. And how are you going to recognize it? Exactly what you just did for yourselves. You're going to start to recognize the behavior. And we all have certain behaviors that show up every time we're not confident. For example, maybe you don't speak up at all. Maybe you find yourself sitting in the back of the room, not turning on your video, whatever it is that you can notice, tangible things. Oh boy, when my voice gets a little shaky, I know I'm in that place of a lack of confidence. Who was it that just said, when you're talking really, really fast and you have to take a breath, that's something to notice because it's in those moments that you have a choice. You actually get to choose. Do I want to help myself be confident? And yes, you can do it. By the way, does anybody happen to know how many choices on average we make in a given day? Just take a guess. Okay. So on average, we make 35,000 choices a day. Do I press snooze or do I jump out of bed right now? Do I have the banana or a bowl of cereal? Do I wear this or do I wear that? All day long, we're making choices. So one of the key things as you learn to help yourself be more confident is to recognize the power of choice. You get to choose. The challenge for most of us is we don't even realize I'm in my confident space now. I'm in my lack of confidence space. So the first thing is to be able to say, ding, 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 I'm in that place and I choose to change it. Because the next piece is to know how the heck to change it, which is what happened to me my entire life in sales, is all that feedback I told you about, including being confident. But how? So I'm going to have you all write down this equation. T for thought plus F for feeling equals B for behavior. And then you could put a little arrow, O for outcome. If you want to show up differently in your behaviors, if you want to feel differently, it all starts with a thought. The challenge is that most of us don't know what disempowered thought is driving us to feel a lack of confidence and show up speaking too quickly or changing our posture. So as you begin to identify the disempowered thought, you're actually first going to say, oh, wait, that's the behavior that I don't want to demonstrate. This is the feeling I don't want to feel. And the hardest part is saying, what am I telling myself right now that's making me feel this way and behave this way with this outcome I don't really want? So we all have what I call a saboteur. It's a sabotaging voice. It's that internal narrative that generally is based on very little fact, but we believe it to be so, so true. Our sabotaging voice really follows three primary themes, and the themes overlap, so don't make yourselves crazy when I explain the themes. They all overlap. There's the need to be liked, the need to be appreciated, the need to be right, the need to be in control. There is the lack of time, lack of money, lack of experience, lack of youth, which we go through, and the fear of being found out, the fear of people knowing you're an imposter, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of judgment, the fear of looking stupid. So if you could see if any one of those themes kind of stands out to you, because we all usually have the same theme or two that's driving us. That sabotaging voice is a lifetime of fear, insecurity, and doubt. That's what it is. So my life experiences have led me to different things that either make me feel afraid or that I need to be. Mine was always I need to be perfect. So can anyone identify a theme that you feel shows up in those moments when you're actually not confident? Are you afraid of something? Do you have this need to be appreciated? Who'd like to share? What comes to mind? And there's no right or wrong. This is all very personal for individuals. Leah, I see you nodding your head. Would you be willing to share?
I'm happy to share. I think the common thing for me when I experience the most lack of confidence is time. Like if I don't have time to prepare or I'm sort of thrown into something, rely a lot on my improvisation of skills. I find that I'm stumbling a little bit, like Joey mentioned.
Okay, so you need more time. I always say to my clients, when they say I didn't have time, I always say, well, you're not going to get more time in a day. You chose not to make time for that. And then that's a whole nother workshop. Okay, who else would be willing to share? What theme feels familiar to you? And it may not be one of the ones I named. You may have your own need or fear of.
Yeah, we have a couple of people here. I want to mention for me, one of them is I appear less confident when I'm trying to people please. Like when I let people kind of overbear, like take care of the conversation whenever I have something important and valuable, but I'm like, oh well, it's them, I'll let them do it, and I start to shrink into my seat, and I feel like that's something I experience a whole lot.
Great. Who else? I've said
Liz. We have also Diana. I saw you got off mute too, so we'll go Liz and Diana.
For me, it's that feeling of being misunderstood. I try and pivot it anytime I have a negative feeling misunderstood, be like, well, since I speak multiple languages, I know I explain the same concepts in many different ways. So let's figure out a way that I can be understood.
Okay, misunderstood. Okay, that's most of these are common, by the way. Like all humans have these themes. Nice to be able to notice your dominant one.
Diana and Simone.
Simone.
Thanks, Joey, for pointing me out. I can't figure out the raise hand spot, so I appreciate you noting whenever my mute button comes off. I think when you said imposter syndrome or of that imposter feeling, that I think I out loudly said, oh yeah, that's definitely one that I have, just because in the past, as a younger, when like young in my career, I was questioned quite often by a manager that was not a very good manager. So everything questioned made me feel like I was not doing something right or the right way. So going to different parts of my career, that imposter feeling has followed me along, and I have to just kind of tell myself, or give myself extra praise when I am feeling confident, when I am doing it right, so that it kind of can go off of that imposter feeling, low confident times. But yeah, that was one of them.
So the feeling afraid to be misunderstood, or the being found out as an imposter, can either one of you, and I'm going to get to Simone in a minute, can either one of you that mentioned those themes identify the thought that's running through your head? Is it I will be found out? Is it like, can you actually put words to what's going on in your head?
Yeah, I think it's more of not being found out, but not doing it right, or people are not going to understand me correctly. And here I am thinking that I'm walking into the room with an agenda and I know what I'm doing, but people are not getting it. And now I feel like that imposter. Like, what made me think that I can just come in here and do it right, when I'm looking at faces and I'm like, oh, they're not getting it. I'm doing it wrong. Oh no, they figured it out.
Okay. So if you can, just put some words down and write out the thought that you hear in your head. Liz, does a thought crystallize for you? And then we'll do Simone and anybody else who might have a specific thought that you can identify.
I speak several languages. And first, my first theme was perfection. I wanted everything to be perfect and knowledgeable, right? And then, but the most important one is the one that you just shared, Liz. In my case, to be understood by the audience when I'm explaining concepts, because it's important for me to resonate with the audience. So, well, I have learned that most of the times nothing happens. Everything that I'm imagining, it will not happen for sure. And
that's an important piece. You are imagining it.
Right. It's in my head.
It's in your head. And you're so certain that it's true unless you can somehow change that thought.
So for me, the I am misunderstood kind of goes intertwined, like with my underline, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. People don't understand me because I'm not worthy of being understood. Don't understand, they're very intertwined for me.
Right. Absolutely. But again, you're starting to identify, because being able to make a choice, you have to know what you're choosing. If it's all living at your subconscious level, it's ruling you. You don't have a choice. So does anybody else have clarity around what you hear in your head as it relates to your theme? Well, I'm going to give you an example. I have a client. She worked in the beauty industry. She reported to the CMO, and she took a job at an automotive company. And I've been coaching her for 2 years now. And it took literally about 9 months for her to remind herself that she was not hired for her automotive knowledge. She had none. So we had to dig in, and she had to hear what she was saying to herself. Don't speak up. You don't know that. You should know that by now. You've been here 5 months. Well, there was not a lot of truth to it. Nobody had an expectation that she would know the automotive market intimately. She came from the beauty market, which, by the way, she didn't know when she started in the beauty market either. But this disempowered thought kept running in her head. She was not speaking up as much. And let me remind you, she was in a very senior role. These experiences that you have happen to everybody, So what you want to start to do is increase your self-awareness around the behaviors that align with that lack of confidence and the feelings. And then this is a multi-step process. It doesn't happen overnight. Once you have the awareness that you're in those moments, I notice I'm sitting like this. You notice you're rambling. You've got to stop and ask yourself, what am I telling myself? What is that disempowered thought? Because if you want to change how you feel, if you want to change how you show up in your behaviors, and of course affect a new outcome, you must change your disempowered thought to an empowering thought. And the reason why this is so hard is you cannot change a thought unless you know what the original thought is that isn't working. Shortly after COVID, well, when we were allowed to go back to conferences and all that, I was asked to speak at a conference, which I had done many times. But of course, I hadn't done it in 4 years with a big audience in Las Vegas. And I remember that moment walking on the stage. I was so nervous. And even days before, my husband said, "What is the matter with you? I mean, you've done this a million times." I mean, I hadn't even worn heels in 4 years, but when I got up on the stage, I am certain that I flubbed my first sentence, which of course, I don't have a memorized script, but I generally know how I want to open. And I felt my heart racing, my stomach sinking. And then I did exactly what I'm trying to teach you all to do. I took a deep breath and I said, "What's a new, more empowering thought?" And when you get more and more comfortable with this process, you'll probably have 2 or 3 go-to thoughts. So my go-to thought when I'm talking to an audience is to remind myself that I know more than they do about this topic. So even if I do mess up, they generally don't know. And the other go-to, usually in a smaller setting, is nobody's thinking about me as much as I think they are. Nobody is sitting there saying, "Let's wait for Sarah to mess up." So for me to be so concerned with messing up is a waste of my energy. So I replaced the disempowered thoughts with some of my go-to thoughts. And the most powerful one for me is, I know more than they do on this topic. And then how do I feel? I feel more energized. I feel more grounded when I'm up on a stage in front of all these people. And as some of you have already mentioned, my body language changes. I sit up more. I reach my arms out. I talk to the audience like this. But when I first walked up on that stage after 4 years of not doing it, I felt it. I felt that lack of confidence. And I could have felt it for the whole half hour that I was speaking. And by the way, a few things happened before I even got up on the stage. They had a tech issue. They wanted to move it outside because it was a beautiful day. Then they had no tech for me. So I did my whole talk without tech, which was okay. But you can see how I started out not feeling my most confident self, because we all know slides can be a great crutch. But there are moments where you're going to be in a room and suddenly your slides don't pop up, or somebody asks you a question that you absolutely have not prepared. If in that moment you can take that breath, which I know somebody here mentioned that, and identify a more empowering thought. But here's the trick. It has to be a thought you believe. If you don't believe it, it's not really going to change anything. And the best example I can give you is I worked with this woman. She had a very senior role in a finance company. She also had about 6 kids. And she obviously was struggling with balancing work and family and all that. And she emailed me one day. This sounds so simple, but it really was not simple. She emailed me and she said, "I've been trying to tell myself I don't have to get everything done. I don't have to get it done. And Sarah, it's not working. I am stressed. I'm fearful that I'm never going to show up the way I need to be at work or at home." And I said, "Well, you're telling yourself something you don't believe. I don't have to get it all done." She didn't believe it. So I sent her a few suggestions. How about this? How about that? And the sentence she grabbed onto was, "I don't have to do it all now." Yeah, she had to probably get it all done. It just didn't have to be now. But when she was telling herself a false empowering thought, it wasn't changing how she felt and it wasn't changing how she was showing up. So the tricky thing is, one, you have to identify the disempowered thought. And I always tell people, use this equation and literally write down the feelings when you're feeling disempowered, the behaviors, and then it's like a backwards equation. Stop and ask yourself, what am I telling myself to feel this way and show up this way? And then cross it out. Literally write it down and cross it out and practice changing the thought to something you believe. If you don't believe it, it's not going to change your feelings and your behavior. So the first thing you all can just do for yourselves is start to recognize your own theme and the triggers that go along with the theme. Then start to really recognize how you feel in those disempowered moments, those moments where you're not confident, and or notice your behavior. That is the first step. As you get comfortable recognizing it, like for me, it's my stomach just sinks. I feel it. Then you're going to practice a new thought. And it won't feel easy the first time you go through it. You might leave a meeting and say, "Oh God, why didn't I do that thing Sarah told me to do?" But the fact that you walk out of a meeting recognizing you might have been able to do it differently is like, yay, you, because it takes that much self-awareness to then habitually teach yourself to change a disempowered thought to empowering thought. But it mostly comes down to feeling and behaving. That is how you will know you are in this place where you lack the confidence. But it's getting to that thought that's the challenge. Anybody have an idea if you've identified a disempowered thought? Do you have a more empowering thought that feels clear to you in this moment? Anybody willing to share?
Just what you said. I'm the one that knows this subject, and I'm going to lead the audience. I'm going to help them. I'm going to engage. I'm going to be the one succeeding at making them feel well because they're learning something new.
Okay, I love that. And I often tell people, stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about everybody in the room in a positive way. What are you preventing them from knowing or learning or understanding if you don't speak up? This isn't necessarily all about you. What are you depriving them of? So sometimes I say, the spotlight that shines on you, turn it around and focus on your audience. Stop worrying about yourself. Start worrying about what gift am I not giving them by keeping silent?
But one thing I've been really working on is, who is this for? How will my delivery land with said audience? And will that achieve my outcome? Instead of thinking so much about myself. And then that has actually helped me gain a lot more confidence speaking.
Great.
I have a tendency as a woman in tech, who's often one of the only women in the room, that I say, does that make sense? When I know that it makes sense and I understand it. And I think it takes away from what I'm saying often, but I don't.
Oh my God, this is a whole nother workshop. But let me tell you.
I know. I was like, I know this is a whole other workshop, but I do think it's important to think more about the audience and the outcome or the response that you're looking for in a positive way versus how you come across. Because a lot of times we're just representing our company. Like, it's not us personally that are out there. It's your work persona. And
Yeah,
so
it's an
important to
excellent.
think about. Yeah, like make a little bubble for yourself and make your confidence inside of that professional bubble, and don't let people pierce through to your personal insecurities, because it's not really about you anyway.
Right. And there are times when it will be about you. You'll be asked something and you have no idea. And you can
Let me find out for you.
What?
Let me find out for you.
Well, right. But you can get down on yourself. Oh, I should have known it. I should have known it. Or you can remind yourself, you know what? Most of the time when I don't know something, I can usually go find that answer.
100%. And they're asking you because they don't know.
Right. Exactly right. But do you see how you're reframing things in your mind? That is what the T plus F equals B is doing for you. It's just giving you a nice, simple formula. And always remember, it's a backwards formula.
I think reverse engineering any outcome is really interesting in a business context. And with all the tools that we probably have in this group with AI recordings and ChatGPT and Claude, I kind of use it as my workplace therapist. Like, where am I cutting myself down in conversations? Like, I'll ask Gong, how am I coming across? Instead of watching the videos, which is like cringe, just ask it questions about your repeat behaviors and try to like work on those things in the mirror. So
I mean, that's so funny that you so I had to sometimes when I write proposals, I always write them, but then I stick them into Chat GPT and I'll say, well, that doesn't really sound like me, or that sounds too complicated. And it'll say to me, excellent point. And I'm like, me. So here's a computer. But it is amazing how when we can sometimes praise ourselves, assure ourselves, just like a computer could do or another human, we can't always wait for another human to give us that sense of value. You can help yourself feel valued and therefore more confident. So confidence is something that you can intentionally build. That is the key thing. And it will come and go in your life. The sabotaging voice tends to show up most when you're making a transition. Of course, you're entering something that is somewhat of an unknown, right? When you face some kind of change in your life. This is new, this is different. So almost always with new situations, it will pop up. So you also start to get to know your triggers. Some people are specifically triggered by going into a meeting, say a salesperson with a bunch of engineers. And I work with people all the time in tech companies who they're the only finance person with a bunch of engineers, or they're the only engineer with a bunch of salespeople, however it is. And a great common phrase that people will use is, I was invited here for a reason. There must be some reason I'm sitting here. They want to hear something from me. So that's another kind of common one is, I was invited for a reason. The stories that go on in our head, that narrative that knocks down our confidence, is a story. You likely have very little fact to back it up. But that sabotaging voice is so real to us. But it is truly a voice that we think is protecting us. Yeah, from embarrassment and judgment and looking stupid, whatever it is, but it's actually holding you back. The clearer you are on disempowered thoughts versus empowered thoughts, the clearer you are on what you're going for, where you're going. It's always that uncertainty. I was just working with a client this morning, and she's actually looking for a new job. And it's a very difficult process for anyone, right? We feel insecure when we don't get the job. And I said to her, you're in this exploratory mode right now, and it's going to feel so, you're going to have a lack of confidence. There's no way around it because she doesn't know yet what she doesn't know. She doesn't even know yet exactly where she wants to go. So she has to give herself permission to be in this exploratory mode. And when she reframed it for herself, yeah, I don't have to know where I'm going or exactly what I want. I'm in this exploratory mode. Even that clarity of truth made her feel more confident.
I kind of have a question for the group. Do you all have like professional hype people? Priscilla, I know you do. But like people that you work with or are in your professional network that are the people that you have that you call when you're feeling kind of down on yourself or you have a huge presentation coming up? I'm kind of working on that for myself.
100%. Yeah, you need to have, we usually talk about in our groups, have your 5 people, like your board of directors, and they can be like one specialist in finance, one like different specialties, but you need to have that. I think it's so important that you have the people. Michael, it's like one of my biggest mentor right now. We work together and we talk about it. The other day I was telling him, like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I have too many things going on. What do I do? And he's just like, oh, right away, he's like, okay, you need to start delegating more. You need to start putting some stuff on the AI. And just that, I'm like, okay, I just needed to hear that. And one thing I wanted to mention for me, that's very important that Sarah brought it up. I think being in this, for me, I feel like I let too many days go before finding out that empowered thought that I need to change. So I noticed that as don't stay on the floor for too many days or too many months, because that can just make things harder, but also it's just harder to get up after. And we had our prep call a few weeks ago with Sarah, and it was one of those days where I was feeling so low, and she didn't know what happened at work or why was I, she had no idea. And just hearing her going through the presentation and this and the exercises, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know how much I needed this today. And I went back and I'm like, okay, I need to focus on the things that I know and that I'm good at it. And then all of a sudden, the week just even my boss says whoa, what happened? So it's just something so simple. It seems so simple, but it's not, right? Even catching, I've been on the floor for too many days. I need to pick myself up and get up and go.
It's amazing what you can do to help yourself. So yes, it's great to turn to other people. And I always talk about your own board of directors, and they often will tell you what to do. But guess what you could ask them that might be even more helpful is what's true in this story that I'm telling myself and what's not true. You'll start to get a little bit more comfortable having that conversation with yourself, but it's really helpful if other people can say, wait a minute, and this is what we do in coaching all the time. When people say, no, I can't go for that job, I'm going to have to travel and I'll never be home. And you preventing yourself from getting that job because of this story. Do you even know if you could reshape the job and maybe not travel? You have no concrete information, but you're holding yourself back from going for that job because of the story that you're telling yourself. So stories are very powerful in our mind. And that's really what our sabotaging voice is doing. It's creating a story for us, right? Boy, you really embarrassed yourself at that presentation 3 years ago, Sarah. You're going to do it again. No, I actually learned from that mistake, and I've got better prompts or better slides, or I didn't memorize my script or whatever I did differently. So that story kind of isn't true right now. So it's the reframing, and just start with that simple equation, and you'll get more and more comfortable going through this process in a moment. Like I did when I was getting up on that stage. I felt that breath, which is very helpful. The pause is a very, very powerful tool. By the way, it helps your listeners hear you better. It helps you collect your thoughts, but it's also a moment where you get to rewrite your equation. So it is good to get comfortable with a few go-to empowering thoughts. As I said, mine are, I know more than they do on this topic, and nobody's thinking about me as much as I think they are, which is true for any of us. Questions, thoughts? concerns, ideas.
I really like what this conversation is going in. As I heard Priscilla with the board of directors and sort of our champions, I find that part of something that helps me personally is reminding myself that I'm a human and that I have emotions. I tend to think that sometimes I forget because I think a little bit about what Joey said about people pleasing. That's one of my challenges as well. And lately, I've just been empowering myself with knowing my limits and knowing, okay, I being a little bit more practical and grounding with ideas and my days. And whether that's like writing a brief to-do list and prioritizing and things like that, which has also empowered me to say no to certain things and know that, and interesting that muscle, especially because it's a new muscle. And so in the beginning, you're like, am I allowed to do things like that? Which ties back into what you were saying, Sarah, about the truth behind the story and sort of picking out the things that are true. And maybe we need a mirror, such as sharing that with somebody to get there.
Amelia, you're the one who said that you don't have time. You're the one who said that. So whenever somebody says that to me, honestly, I'm like, that is not the truth, because somehow we find time to do the things that we define as important, as key priorities. So then you almost have to ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Or what do I think I need that I'm not going to get? So there are deeper reasons why we don't jump into something. It generally is not time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will say preparation is key to gaining some clarity. And it doesn't mean you have to prep for hours. It could be 5 minutes before you go into a meeting and get clear. I always have people think in buckets. Like, what are the 3 key things you want to make sure you cover? Reminding yourself that if you have no script, you still probably could talk about whatever your expertise is in some way, shape, or form. Like the dog ate the script. But any kind of preparation, even 5 minutes before, really does breed greater confidence. 5 minutes before a meeting, what's my purpose for being at this meeting? What do I need to get across? And you'll walk in standing straight and your voice will be more confident. Any other thoughts, questions? And what I also think is so great is you realize you really aren't alone. I mean, I could line up a bunch of CEOs and I promise you they have these same experiences in different moments, perhaps, than you might, but they've got it.
Yeah. Sarah, I just want to say thank you so much for your perspective and just talking us through some practical ways to think about confidence, communication, and using our own voice on our 2-year anniversary, and also with Café con Éxito and why it was founded. It was for these reasons, to help us not feel alone in these feelings and let us know that we are together in this. We're looking to support each other in this and help us take those next steps by bringing amazing people like Sarah in here to help us see we're not alone in this journey. Sarah, before we let you go and thank you again for our last things, anything you want to highlight, anything you want to promote?
Well, I would love for all of you to link in with me, Sarah Benenson Goldberg, on LinkedIn, but also SBG Leadership. I do executive coaching, I do communication training, I do team building. I love working with organizations in a little bit of a deeper way because I get to know their culture and their people. I love what I do. And if I can ever support you or help you or anyone you know, reach out to me. But at the very least, let's stay connected on LinkedIn. Thank you for your